What's up, guys? Welcome to the video, day number 30 of Branduary. Can't believe we're moving right along. Look, today in the video, I want to give you a framework that might simplify a lot of the noise out there around success and high performance. Many years ago, one of my coaches in the NFL used to use this phrase that really stuck with me. He said, we can only train three things: our mindset, our skill set, and our habits. And the more I thought about that over the years, the more I realized that it's not just a catchy phrase or a catchy slogan. It's actually a really accurate way to understand why people get stuck, and on the flip side, how and why pros consistently get better. And while it seems simple, I think most people misunderstand how these three things actually work together. So today in the video, I want to break this down in a simple, applicable way. So get your notebook, get your pencils and pens, and take some notes here. All right, let's start here. There are really only three things, again, that we can train: our mindset, our skill set, and our habits. And that's it. Everything else, confidence, motivation, discipline, success, etc., all those other things that we care about and we talk about, those are all a byproduct of how well those other three things are trained. So first, let's talk about mindset. Mindset's really just how you interpret reality. It's your beliefs, your identity, your self-talk, your meaning making. Here's the key distinction that I think most people miss, though. You don't experience life as it is. You experience life as you are. That's your mindset, the lens through which you view the world. Your mindset's going to determine things like how you respond to failure, whether feedback feels like an attack and an insult or a gift, whether pressure sharpens you or breaks you. And look, just to be clear, mindset is not positive quotes or hype. Mindset is training your nervous system to stay grounded when things get uncomfortable. Such an important piece. Second, let's talk about skill set. Skill set's just what you can actually do. So we're talking about leadership, communication, decision-making, selling, emotional regulation. That's a skill. Look, these aren't personality traits. These are trainable skills. And here's the hard truth. Confidence doesn't come first. Motivation doesn't come first. Competence comes first. In other words, skill comes first. And that's why it's so important that we train our skill set. A lot of people are out there saying, I need more confidence. What they really mean is they need more reps. In other words, they need to hone their skills and sharpen their skills more. Third, habits. Habits are what you do without thinking. I think everybody generally knows what habits are and what that means. And this is where everything really compounds or it'll decay. You don't rise to the level of your mindset. You don't fall to the level of your motivation. You default to the level of your habits. That's why it's so important. You default to the level of your habits, especially when you're tired, you're stressed, or you're emotional, or things get a little bit emotional. That's why habits ultimately are the real floor. So let's talk about how this all ties in with motivation, because this is where people get it backwards. Here's the reframe. Motivation follows mastery. The reason is because progress creates proof. We've talked previously on the channel about proof. When you see yourself getting better, in other words, when there's evidence, when you've collected evidence, you don't have to hype yourself up. Your brain has gotten the reward. So your confidence then rises and momentum starts to build. You don't get motivated and then improve. You improve, and then motivation shows up as the byproduct. That's so important to understand that. And that's why when people say they're waiting to feel motivated, it's such a trap. Motivation doesn't precede action. Action done consistently creates the motivation. That's how the motivation and the momentum get created. So here's how you can actually train your skill set. And I want to make this really, really practical. If you want to train your skill set the right way, it comes down to these three things. You have to take deliberate action. In other words, deliberate reps, not just random effort. Most people confuse activity with training, and training means you're working a specific skill with an intention, with standards, and with focus. It's got to be specific and intentional, because if you can't name what you're training, you're not training, you're just busy. Second, progressive difficulty. Look, skills only grow when the challenge grows. So if it's comfortable, you're maintaining, you're not improving. Slightly harder reps, increasing the difficulty is gonna force the adaptation. Comfort kills skill, and we need to understand that. Third, last but not least here, immediate feedback loops. Look, you need feedback. You need it from your results, from mentors, from video. We used to watch film and video in the NFL every single day. You need feedback from metrics. You need feedback from reflection. If you're not reviewing and adjusting, you're just guessing. Look, no feedback, no real growth. So important. Now, here's the part that actually ties everything together. Habits make your mindset visible. What you repeatedly do is what you actually believe, not what you say you believe. If your habits are inconsistent, avoidant, or sloppy, That's not a discipline problem. That's your mindset being exposed. Habits are literally belief in motion. Here's the second piece. Habits put skill on autopilot because repetition removes decision making. You don't even have to think about it. When something's habitual, you don't rely on motivation, willpower, or mood. Your skills show up automatically, especially under pressure, because they've been wired into your nervous system. They show up when you need them most, and again, you don't even have to think about it. And this is why you'll never hear pros, true pros, talk about trying harder when it counts or going harder for a big game or when the stakes are higher. They train for it to be automatic, so it just happens without thinking. When your habits are dialed in, three better outcomes show up very quickly. First, consistency without willpower. You show up even when motivation dips because behavior is no longer a debate. Second, you get calm under pressure. Your default responses are trained so stress doesn't hijack your performance. And third, you get faster progress with less effort. Your energy goes into execution, not decision fatigue or starting over. So look, here's the bottom line. Well-trained habits turn discipline into a default. So if you feel stuck, unmotivated, or inconsistent, the question is not what's wrong with me. Ask these questions instead. Is my mindset aligned? Am I actually training the right skills? And are my habits reinforcing or sabotaging who I'm trying to become? Because I'm willing to bet that motivation isn't missing. It's just waiting on mastery. So look, if this hit, share it with someone who's been waiting to feel ready. And remember, pros don't wait for motivation. They train the systems that create it. I hope you got value from the video. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, give me a like on the video. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow, we'll see you back here for the final day, day 31 of Branduary. We'll see you then.